How's it going, y'all? Titan Smash MTG, and today we're back with some more MTGA standard action. Today we're talking about the 10 different lists for Kaldheim standard. Been brewing these up for a little bit now, and I'm very excited to show these off. Before we begin, if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. Helps the channel a lot. I'm not going to waste your time too much on that. Now, one word of note here, we're not going to be looking at existing archetypes here. Things like Yorion, Guerrilla Adventures, Mono Green Food. We already know what these decks look like and do, so I want to take a look at newer decks rather than existing things. Now, we will be doing a video later in the week, kind of showing off existing archetypes and what kind of additions they get from the set. But for here, just wanted to look at things that are kind of new lists, that kind of thing. So let's go ahead and jump in here. 10 different decks I hope you all enjoy. We will be playing these in the Early Access stream event on January 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're not subscribed to my Twitch already, you're following it, twitch.tv/TitansmashMTG, playing up against other streamers, playing against other pros. These events are always a lot of fun, and just a way to see these decks as early as you can. So let's not waste any more time here. Let's get a look at some Kaldheim standard decks. Let's go. So deck number one we'll be looking at here is no surprise to anyone who follows me on Twitter. This is Temur Giants. Now, I'll go ahead and say I have Grixis Giants built as well. I'm not going to show it in this video, but the link will be in the description below. But I think Temur Giants is a super sweet way of building this deck. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Just a note, when I'm showing these cards off, I'm going to try to show like a big blown up picture of all the new cards here when we talk about them. So that way they're pretty easy to see here. So hopefully that makes it all easier for you. So starting off here, we don't have any 1-drops. We're Giant deck. You know, Giants aren't 1 mana. They're big old creatures. So the 2-mana slot will start off here. We're playing 2 of Fire Prophecy, just a little removal spell here, a way to kind of sift through our deck and look for another card if we need it to either hit that land drop or find a Giant if we need there. Just some kind of early removal here. I thought about playing Squash, the Giant removal spell that could potentially be really cheap, but I don't want to have to rely on having a Giant on the battlefield all the time because that's just not as reliable as you think it is. So I think Fire Prophecy is just a better answer here. First new card we're playing here is Glimpse of the Cosmos, playing a 2 of this. This is a 2-mana sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. As long as you control a Giant, you may cast Glimpse of the Cosmos from your graveyard by paying blue rather than paying its mana cost. If you cast Glimpse of the Cosmos this way, and it would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So 2 mana, you get to kind of look at the top 3 cards, put a card in your hand. That's already okay. But getting to do this again for only 1 mana is very nice, especially when you have some of these other cards that kind of cheapen the cost of your spells. You pay one of your Giants, you have 1 mana left over, you pay that blue, get another card. That's just really good value there. I think Glimpse of the Cosmos could possibly be a 4 of in this deck. One to start off as a 2-0 because we just have so many options to play here. Next card I want to look at here is Invasion of the Giants. We're playing 3 of these. This is a 2-mana saga. Chapter 1, Scry 2. Nothing crazy here, but in the other games, you know, you just drop this down on turn 2, you Scry 2 to kind of set up your early draws here and see what you get next. Chapter 2, draw a card, then you may reveal a Giant card from your hand. When you do, Invasion of Giants deals 2 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. Chapter 3, the next Giant spell you cast costs 2 less to cast this turn. So you're telling me for 2 mana, I get to Scry 2, draw a card, bolt somebody in the face, and then have a reduction on my Giants? That is insane value for 2 mana. Invasion of the Giants is a really good saga, and just obviously one of the reasons where if you wasn't going to be in a blue shell for Giants, you want to get that way. Invasion of the Giants looks sweet. Looking forward to playing this one. Trying out 2 of Agar the Freezing Flame. This is a 3-mana 3/3, 1 red-blue. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a Giant, Wizard, or spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card. Essentially what this means is when you attack with your Giants, if they chump block in any way or you have any kind of way to deal more damage, say you attack with your 3/3 here and they block it with the Rod of the Rich, which is a 2/2, you'd be doing an excess damage, you'd be drawing a card. So any kind of chump block the opponents make now is really nice because you're still drawing a card and getting card advantage. So not only do we have these big beefy threats that can kind of close the game out quick, but they can also draw you cards in the shell, and that's really nice. Playing 4 of Bonecrusher Giant here, no surprise there. We get the Stomp side, we get the Bonecrusher side. This Bonecrusher Giant, always standard playable, great card. So one of the main reasons I go green here is I'm playing a 4 of Realm Walker. This is his 3-mana 2/3 Changeling Shapeshifter. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. So doing his best kind of Course of Crufix kind of thing. You know, you play this 2-mana 2/3. It gets all the, it's a Giant, so all the kind of Giant buffs or other cards in the set here work out for it. But this also means you can just start casting Giants off the top of your library. So between the Scrying and Realm Walker here, you just generate through the deck so quickly. Get a lot of card advantage type stuff there. Realm Walker seems like a great reason to be in any kind of travel synergy, but especially the Giants, it looks really nice. Playing a whole playset of Calamity Bearer here. This is a 4 mana 3/4, kind of similar to Tectonic Giant being a 4 mana 3/4, but Calamity Bearer, man. 3 mana 3 or 4 mana 3/4. If a giant source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. That means they target your Bone Crusher Giant with removal, they're taking 4 to the face. The Tectonic Giant even swings, it's dealing 6 damage to the opponent with this trigger alone, not even counting the 6 damage from swinging. I see this in kind of things where you're dropping all your other giants as much as you can, then you draw out Calamity Bearer, you swing, and that's just going to be so hard to deal with. Even your little mopey 3-power creatures are doing 6 damage now, so they can attack through things like Elder Gargaroth, which is very relevant. Calamity Bearer seems like a house, and I think it's one of the giant decks that's really, really good. So we're playing a 2 of Golgari, God of the Kinship. This is a 4 mana 2/4. As long as you control 3 or more legendary creatures, it gets +4/+2. It has the bottom text. But that's not why we're playing this card. We are playing this card for the Ringheart Crest. That's the backside of it. This is a 2 mana legendary artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Add green mana. Spend this mana to only cast a creature spell of the chosen type or a legendary creature spell. So a 2 mana rock for these means on turn 3, we can be dropping those Calamity Bears. We can be dropping our Tectonic Giants. Just getting all these kind of ways to ramp out these creatures a little bit early. Ringheart Crest seems fantastic in this gel. So we're playing this card just for this backside for the most part, but it's nice if we need to play Golgari, we can. So we're playing a whole playset of Tectonic Giants, as I mentioned before. That 4 toughness really just dodged a lot of removal. 4 mana 3/4. Whenever Tectonic Giant attacks or becomes the target of a spell opponent controls, choose one. You can either deal 3 damage to target opponent, or you can exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one, and at the end of your next turn, you may play that card. That 3 damage is very relevant with Calamity Bear, because as I said, that's 6 damage if you have Calamity Bear on the battlefield, plus you're swinging for 6, so you're potentially just swinging for 12 with 1 card. One huge card this archetype got here is Battle of Frost and Fire. This is a 5 mana saga, Chapter 1, which is very important to Chapter 1 because you want this to happen right away. Battle of Frost and Fire deals 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. So this is basically a one-sided board wipe for you that obviously is very relevant and means a lot. But the thing is, especially if you have cards like Vivian and Standard, which start off at 3, so they can drop their Vivian, they can plus up and make a 3/3, then you just drop this and you kill not only the 3/3, but you kill the Vivian as well. That is stupid good. Chapter 2, Scry 3, so again, we've wiped the board, we kind of know what's happening. We have the next turn to see how they rebuild it and what they do. We Scry 3, kind of figure out our answers from there. Then Chapter 3, whenever you cast a spell, convert a mana cost 5 or greater this turn, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Not too many cards to go in that realm for us. We play Quakebringer and Beanstalk Giant. I thought about playing Temur Ultimatum here, but it seems a little bit too high mana cost for what we want to do. Playing a whole playset of Quakebringer, I actually think this card is nuts because it can possibly be another just 4 mana card. 5 mana 5/4, your opponents can't gain life. At the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's 4 damage with Calamity Bear. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield, or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. So you're telling me against something like Dimir Rogues, if they start milling this and you have a giant out, you're still going to be hitting them anyways? That is kind of insane. The fact that you can foretell this and cost it for 4 is really nice if you're struggling on mana a little bit. Quakebringer just a 5/4 for 5 already. That's just a beater too. So I think Quakebringers will be sweet. I like this card a lot. We're playing 4 of. Finally, 2 of Beanstalk Giant here. Just some early ramps so you can go turn 3 Giant to turn 4 Quakebringer. Or if you have the mana to do it later on, you just have a big giant. And if I mentioned Calamity Bear, how it doubles the power, I don't know, you could be potentially swinging for 20 with this card. It's kind of crazy there. Otherwise, the land's pretty self-explanatory here. Nothing exciting in there, but hey, that is Temur Giants. Perhaps Grixis is the better shell for this. I'm not really quite sure, but Temur is the one that I'm excited about. Again, Grixis list in the list below, in the description below. Let's go ahead and look at the next deck. Let's go! So deck number 2 we'll be looking at here is Golgari Elves. This is an archetype that I really didn't think I'd be interested in because I'm just not a big Elves person when it comes to Magic in general. However, they got a lot of support this set, and there was one certain day of spoilers that just made me say, okay, we're building Elves. Let's go start looking at the list here. 4 Bloodchief's Thirst. It's in the colors. It's a good cheap removal. Kill something early, kill anything late. It's a good card. Let's go to the 2-drop slot though. 4 of Elvish Warmaster. I think this card is super sweet. 2 mana 2/2 Elf Warrior. Whenever 1 or more elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green Elf Warrior creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn, which is probably good because if it's triggered at any time, the card would just be insanely busted, I think. If you get to 7 mana and you need to use it, pay 7, elves you control get +2/+2 and gain Death Touch at the end of the turn. So you can really make combat just living hell for someone going to attack and then holding up this kind of mana here. But War Master just been a nice little drop early on, kind of doing its whole Hero Precinct 1 thing where you're just casting spells and creating other tokens here. Really nice. These do stack as well, so if you have two War Masters on the battlefield, you'll start making creatures there. Super nice. Playing 2 of Heartless Act here because, again, we do need to play removal. As fun as it is to just play new cards, we have to play some removal. So 2 of Heartless Act we go with here. Playing a whole playset of Skimfar Avenger. This is a 2 mana 3/1, so 1 black 3/1 Elf Berserker. Whenever another non-token elf or berserker you control dies, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So this is a little bit cheaper Midnight Reaper. However, it only happens for when other creatures die. So if this dies, it doesn't really trigger anything. But you have so many elves, especially if you get to go wide and make a big board, that it kind of incentivizes you to not really worry about the board wipes because you'll just draw some cards anyway. Now, losing life can be relevant in certain matchups, but most of the time, the things that are going to board wipe you, you don't really care about your life loss. So I think this card is actually super good, and I've not really heard a lot of talk about this card for as nice as it is. I think this card is super sweet and one of the best elves in the set. Playing 2 of Tazuru Paragon here is getting kind of hard to cut all these cards because there's so many good ones here, but a 2 mana 3/2 is a good rate already. It's an elf that you can kick it for 3, and then you can search for another elf, basically. So, Tazuru Paragon, super sweet card. We'll play 2 of it here. Now, as mentioning, there was reasons to play this deck here, and one of them is Herald, King of the Skimfar. This is a 3 mana 3/2 Elf Warrior with Menace, so a 3/2 with Menace is already fine. Whenever Herald, King of the Skimfar, enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an Elf, Warrior, or Tyvar card from among them and put into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So you get a 3/2 Menace for 3 already, which is fine, but then you also get to essentially draw a card, and the fact that it says Tyvar means we can grab that Planeswalker too. So this card is super pushed, I think, and we're kind of incentivized. Like, I think playing 3 is okay because if it dies, we can just play another one, draw another card, replace itself. Card is sweet. Whole playset of Land of War Visionary here, just 3 mana, ramp up a little bit and draw a card. Again, we're just trying to get all this value. Each one of these creatures just comes with so much value attached to it. It's really nice. Playing a whole playset of Realm Walker once again because it's a changeling. So get this look at it, casting elves off the top is what this deck wants to do. Again, any kind of tribal deck, Realm Walker is probably going to be in it if it synergizes well enough, and I think it does here. So now we get to go to the kind of spicy cards here. I'm playing 2 of Canopy Tactician. This is the 4 mana 3/3. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and you can tap it to add 3 green. I'm not super excited on 4 mana Lord. That's a little bit expensive, especially when it comes with just a 3/3 body. But I think, going wide with the Ward Master here and being able to do stuff with Elven Ambush, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that I do think we want some Lord of some sort here, and Canopy Tactician gets that job done. Not super exciting, worth playing out and seeing how it works though. So we're going to try 2 of Elven Ambush. This card may be absolutely terrible, or this may be the best thing this thing can do, and I'm not really sure. Because there's a chance the payoff for this is insanely high, but there's also just a chance that this is garbage. 4 mana instant, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. So if you have 0 elves out, this is a 4 mana to do nothing, and that sucks. If you only have 1 elf, then you're doing 4 mana to make a single elf. However, say if you made your board go wide, you curved out 2, 3, 2 mana, 3 mana, maybe War Master one of those cards. You're getting 3 to 4 elves at instant speed, and then you're getting to attack the next turn. That seems pretty decent. I want to try this out as a 2 of, but I'm very well aware this card may be hot garbage. So we're playing a whole playset of Herald Unites the Elves. This is a 4 mana saga, and one of the reasons we play in Elves in the first place. Chapter 1, mill 3 cards. You may put an Elf or Tyvar card from the graveyard onto the battlefield. Not your hand, to the battlefield. That's insane. I tried looking up to see if there were really expensive elves in Standard, and there's just not anything worth cheating in there. It'd be nice if there's like a 7 or 8 mana elf that we could do stuff with, but there's just not. Chapter 2, put a +1/+1 counter on each elf you control. So again, you're doing exactly what this deck wants to do. Chapter 3, whenever an elf you control attacks this turn, target creature an opponent controls get -1/-1 until end of turn. If you thought Embercleave math was absolute hell, just wait until this happens on Chapter 3. So you're getting to find an elf or a Planeswalker card here, Chapter 1. Buff the whole team here with 1/1 counters on Chapter 2. And then Chapter 3, you just send them all in to attack, and you just start -1 and -1 their board. And a lot of situations against a lot of decks, you're going to just pick off their board and then swing in for win. This card is absolutely insane. This is the best card in the deck, bar none. I'd play 8 of these if I could, I think. This card just seems absolute gas. I think this is better than Tyvar Kell, which we'll talk about now. For Tyvar Kell, this is a 4-mana Planeswalker, starts with 3 loyalty. Has a passive ability here. The elves you control have tapped to add a black mana, so we're playing Golgari, obviously. +1. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target elf, untap it. It gains Death Touch at the end of turn. This is really nice for things like Canopy Tactician, which you can add mana to do stuff anyways. 0 here, create a 1/1 elf warrior creature token. Nothing exciting, but it's a 0 that makes elves. It protects itself a little bit. It's fine. -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an elf spell, it gains haste on the end of turn and you draw 2 cards. That's a really nice ultimate there. That should be able to close out a game. Even if you have a big board, if they wipe you, they kill all your creatures, you start playing elves, they have haste, you draw cards. I don't see how you lose the game from there. Land-wise, we're playing 1 turn Timber Symbiosis just because we can get to the amount of mana to cast that, and it works out. Otherwise, pretty standard stuff. We're playing some Fable Passages, the Pathways, some Snow Lands. But 2 Faceless Haven I wanted to talk about here. I think in most Tribal Synergies, I think it's also fine to have Faceless Haven in there. Didn't put it with my Giants list just because it's a little bit more mana hungry in some spots. But Faceless Haven, a colorless land, but if you add 3 Snow Lands, it becomes a 4/3 creature with Vigilance and is all creature types, so end of turn. So it gets all those kind of elf synergies there. If you have Herald out, you can possibly activate this and swing in. It's just another thing. Card's good. But that's what we got here for Golgari Elves. This looks like a really fun list. And I think one that'll play well in early standard just because it kind of has a straightforward game plan. But being Golgari, you have access to a lot of removal should you need it. So I think this deck is actually going to be pretty sweet. Let's look at deck number 3. So next up is a deck that I'm not sure if it's either, it may be insane or this may just be hot garbage, but this is Snowtai Snowgods. This is a Sultai Snow list here with a bunch of gods. I got a lot of spicy kind of things here. This is one of those that may be amazing, or I may just be trying to do way too much here, but I wanted to try it out. So starting off with the 1-drop slot here, we're playing 2 of Ascendant Spirit. This thing is doing its best Figure of Destiny impression. I'll be honest, this card is super, super sweet, but I think this may be a trap. For one, I'm not sure how, you may just have to play a hell of a lot more snow mana than I'm playing to make this work consistently, for one. Number 2, even though it can do a lot of things and get really big, which is nice to be able to dump your mana into, it's unfortunate if you spend your time doing all that and then it just dies removal of some sort. So I think Ascendant Spirit is very worth playing out and testing here, but I would not be surprised if this card just ends up being a trap. We're playing a whole playset of Bloodchief Curse and 2 Heartless Act. Again, we're just trying to put some removal in here so we can't just be all creatures. Playing a whole playset of Avalanche Caller here. I think this card is actually super nice. This is a 2-mana 1/3 snow creature. You pay 2 mana, target snow land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with hexproof and haste until end of turn. It's still a land. The thing having haste and hexproof is super nice, and 4/4 is very relevant. So the fact that you only have to pay 2 mana to make that happen is super sweet. So playing a whole playset of that. Playing 2 of Kennen, Bonder Prodigy, which I'll still show here just because people haven't played with this card a lot. Simic colors, so it's a 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent produced. You can pay 7, look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may put a non-human creature from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom in any order. So all of our god creatures here that we'd be playing, we can put them into the battlefield, and we have a few ways to add mana here, which is kind of cool. So we're playing 3 of Valki. This is the front side of the Tibalt Planeswalker. Valki, God of Lies, 2-mana 2/1. When Valki enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card revealed this way until Valki leaves the battlefield. You may pay X, choose a creature card exile with Valki. With converted mana cost X, Valki becomes a copy of that card. So a lot of versatility and usefulness of this one. It's an early way to kind of see what the opponent's hand is as well. Take out one of their creatures. Hopefully they don't get to use it anymore. If Euro is still in the format, this would be just absolutely insane. But still, say you're on the play and you get to take their Kroxa, and then next turn you're just turning this into Kroxa and playing it. That seems super, super sweet. Playing 2 of Egon, God of Death. This is a 3-mana 6/6 with Death Touch. It's a god. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. If you can't, sacrifice Egon and draw a card. So no matter what, this thing cycles itself to draw a card, which is nice in this list. But if you have the things in your graveyard, it's a 3-mana 6/6 Death Touch, which is also stupid good. We also have the front side of it with the back side with the artifact as well, which is playable in this kind of list as well. So I think this card's actually sweet. Playing 2 of Esika, God of the Tree. You'll notice we're not playing a lot of 4s in this list, again, because they're all gods. You just don't want to do that, and they're legendary creatures. 3 mana, it's 1/4 with Vigilance. You can add 1 mana of any color. So with Kanan, we can add 2 mana of any color. Other legendary creatures you control have Vigilance and tap to add 1 mana of any color. So all of a sudden, our creatures are ramping up really fast. With Kanan out, they're not only tapping for 1 mana of any color, but they're tapping for 2 mana of any color. This can just really ramp you up crazy fast and get some big payoffs there. Next up, we're playing 3 Jorn, God of Winter, because you know nothing Jon Snow. Get it, because Jorn, it's a snow creature. 3 mana, 3/3 legendary snow creature. When Jorn attacks, untap each snow permanent you control. Not snow creature, but snow permanent. So any lands you use that are snow lands, untap. So Jorn has a lot of versatility there. So the back half of that is Kaldheim, the Rhyme Staff. This is the 3 mana, 1 blue to black. Legendary snow artifact. Just tap it. You may play target snow permanent card from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped. So you put all your mana into that Avalanche Caller early on, or not Avalanche Caller, but Ascendant Spirit. They kill it eventually. Just play it again, start it up again, and you just keep on forcing them to have to deal with it. Any of the other snow permanents get put in the battlefield, bring them back. This card is super sweet, especially coming attached to Jorn. Trying a 2-of Draugr Necromancer here. I'm not sure how much I really like this card, but I do want to try it out because it's a way to get a lot of card advantage with Jorn when you're untapping stuff and having all this mana. It's a 4 mana 4/4. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile that card with an ice counter on it instead. You may cast spells from among cards in your exile your opponents own with ice counters on them, and you may spend mana of snow sources as though they were mana of any colors to cast this spell. So if anything dies, they're getting exiled, which is already relevant in a lot of shells. But the fact that you can just get those creatures back and play them for your own is super sweet. And by itself, a 4 mana 4/4 is just reasonable anyways. So we're playing 2 of this. Perhaps it should be more. The card's fine. Once again, playing 2 of Golgari, God of the Kinship. 4 mana 2/4. As long as you control 3 more legendary creatures, it gets +4/+2 and has Vigilance. You have the backside to choose gods and ramp up that way. Also, the front side of this is relevant. Pay 1 green and tap it to look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature, legendary creature card from among those and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library, any order. So Golgari coming down on turn 2, so you can play other things, do other 4 mana spells on turn 3. Or it's just a way to kind of generate card advantage, and a lot of times this is going to be a 4 mana 6/6 with Vigilance, which is sweet. So Golgari works out really well in this shell, and I'm really liking the potential that it has here in this deck. So one of the coolest cards we got revealed here is no surprises in this list. We're playing 3 of Narfi, Betrayer King. This is the 5 mana Snow Lord, so a 5 mana 4/3. Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. But the whole reason we play this deck, not for the puff, pay 3 snow mana, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you can do this on the end step. Say they kill all your stuff, you've got this in the graveyard. On the opponent's end step, you just pay 3 and return it. They can't counter it because it's getting returned and not cast. Narfi seems fantastic, works out really well in this shell. It buffs your snowlands when they attack with Avalanche Caller, makes your Ascendant Spirit a little bit bigger. This is sweet. So finally, at the very top of the curve, this is Koma, Cosmos Serpent. This is the 7 mana 6/6 legendary creature serpent that can't be countered. I think we have enough ramp to get here consistently. Can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. So every upkeep, not just yours, is really important there. Sacrifice another serpent. You can tap target permanent. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. So this is a way you can kind of tap down the board in step and just get for a big swing. You can stop an opponent from doing something you want them to do. Or Kona gains indestructible into end of turn. So this thing is going to be very hard to kill. It just generates card advantage and just ways to, not card advantage, but it generates advantage every turn. Seems sweet. For the lands here, if you look, this is the one thing I'm not quite sure of, is I don't know how many snow permanents you should be playing to make all this work. There's a good chance I need to be playing less of these pathways and more of the havens and the falls, Rhinewood Falls, the dual tap lands for snowlands. It's a good possibility that I'm just not playing enough of these here, so maybe that's something I need to do. But one more thing to talk about that we can't skip here is we're playing 3 of the World Tree. The World Tree is absolutely nuts in this deck, I want to think. So it's a land that enters battlefield tapped. You can add green. We already know that. As long as you control 6 or more lands you control will have tapped to add 1 mana of any color. Then finally, the 10 mana at the bottom there, you sacrifice the World Tree, search your library for any number of God cards, put them on the battlefield, and shuffle your library. If you haven't noticed, most of this deck is God cards anyway. You just throw them all on the battlefield, scattered about. All these kind of synergies that they get work together really well. It's going to be hard to beat. This seems super sweet here. So again, my big worry about this is, for 1, if we just don't have enough snow mana to make it work. For 2, maybe I'm just trying to do too much here with what we got. But this is early access. This is the spoiler season. This is when we try these crazy things to see if they work. So Snowtai Snowgods is my number 3 deck here. Let's take a look at deck number 4. Alright, so the next couple decks here are actually Yorion decks. So you're not going to be able to see all the cards on here as far as the lands go. But we'll bring those up here as I talk about them in the video. But this is Abzan Yorion. There's a couple cards that got spoiled that I really wanted to try out with this set. Let's go ahead and get right into it. First off, we got 2 Bloodchief's Thirst and 4 Heartless Act. You know, we're doing the 2-4 kind of split here once again with these 2 cards. Nothing new there. We're doing a whole playset of Maze Mind Tome. We already know how good this card is. Fits really well in almost any shell, but especially with Yorion. When it's about to pop, if you don't want it to, you blink it with Yorion and bring it back. Playing 2 of Elspeth's Nightmare. 3 mana Saga. We already know what this does there, but just getting to pick off little cheap creatures early on, reveal the hand so you can take a card out of it, and then exile in the graveyard can be relevant sometimes too. Playing a whole playset here of Mythos of Nethroi. Just a 3 mana destroy anything in Abzan is super nice and very relevant. 2 on one of the hunt because we can ramp, because Abzan wants to ramp and get up there so they can cast a Yorion and the big beaters a little bit sooner. So let's talk about some new cards now. Next up we have 2 of Cerul Pharrell Meter. This is the 3/3 Legendary Wolf. Whenever a permanent opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Cerul Pharrell Meter. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Cerul has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. So I want to try out Cerulf here because there's a lot of removal in this deck anyways. I mean, Abzan is basically just a mono removal deck with some good creatures. So we play the Cerulf. If they don't kill it, we start killing their own things, getting counters on this to beat down with a little bit. And then if we need to kill something, we remove the counters and kill it. Or if we need to, we build all these counters on there, we drop Yorion, kill whatever we need to before removing the counters, and then once all these come back down, you stack your triggers where you're killing stuff again with Elspeth's Nightmare and things like that, and then Cerulf gets all those counters kind of back, and you're welcome to just use them again as needed. So I think Cerulf's kind of cool in here. I don't think the card's super amazing on its own, but I think it fits in a shell like this. Playing a whole playset of Skyclave Apparition because it's still just one of the best cards in Standard, and especially with Yorion getting to flash it back. Look at some of the newer cards here, though. We're playing 3 of Binding of the Gold Gods. This is the 4 mana Saga, Chapter 1, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Non-land permanent getting a hit at basically anything there is really nice. Chapter 2, search your library for a forest card and put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. Worth noting, it just says forest, so you can go get one of the triomes here if we want to, which is really nice. But it also says, I mean, yeah, just any kind of forest is good. Chapter 3 here, doesn't matter too much, but creatures you control gain Death Touch in a turn. But it's nice that the bad part's on Chapter 3, because if we want to blink this with Yorion, we play this on 4. Next turn we can play Yorion from the hand, do it again, destroy something else. That's just really nice. So next up, one that may look kind of weird in this deck, but one that I'm excited to try out. We're playing a 2 of Asika's Chariot. This is the 4 mana 4/4 legendary vehicle. When Asika's Chariot enters the battlefield, create 2 2/2 green cat creature tokens. Whenever Asika's Chariot attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. That's a mouthful. But it's nice because blinking this means you get more kitties. When you're attacking with this, you're getting more tokens. This thing just kind of starts going out on its own and creating this big wide battlefield that actually plays really well with Yorion, because you can blink the Chariot to make more tokens, but leave the tokens on the battlefield. I think this is actually really sweet here. I want to try it out in the shell because it's a fun one. Playing a whole playset of Extinction Event here. It's Extinction Event. We know what the card does. It's fantastic. Playing 2 Yasharn, because Yasharn is still a good vehicle that helps us ramp up a little bit, get that guaranteed 5th mana we need. And then Yasharn also just shuts down some strategies that people may be doing. Whole playset of Elspeth Conquers Death. No surprise here. So we're playing 2 of Kaya the Inexorable. This is the 5 mana Planeswalker at 5 loyalty. +1, put a Ghost Form counter on up to 1 target non-token creature. It gains, when this creature dies or is put into exile, return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1 White Spirit creature token with flying. -3, exile, target on-land permanent. -7, you get an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. You may cast a legendary spell from your hand, from your graveyard, or from cards among exile you control without paying its mana cost. So Kaya, when you get the ultimate here, which happens really fast too, it starts on 5 and the 7 is the ultimate there, is really nice. But Kaya kind of works really well here. You can do like +1, put a Ghost Form counter on Skyclave Apparition. That way you can attack in or chump block with it, have it die, and then you get to bring it back to hand, cast it again later on. Is really nice. Exiling the target non-land permanent. This deck has so many different ways of just dealing with everything, which is why I think Abzan's really good. But I'm excited to try Kaya in this list. I actually think it works out really well. Finally, we're playing the other 3 Yorion in the main deck here, so we have 4 of total. We're playing 2 Beanstalk Giant, both for the ramp early on and the Beanstalk Giant big old thing afterwards. 2 Ugin the Spirit Dragon at the very top. I know Ugin doesn't want to work with this because you don't want to exile your whole board since you have a lot of non-land permanents yourself. But sometimes you just need that get out of jail free card, and that's what Ugin is. And if you get into a situation where you're just plussing it, obviously you get so many things you just hit on with that ultimate it is as well. But that's what we got. We're playing 30 lands, well 32 counting Amaria's Call, so I think we have plenty of lands here. Again, not really sure what we're supposed to be playing as far as like the snow covered ones and all. We don't have to take advantage of snow in this list, but yeah, that's Abzan Yorion, removal deck with some good filthy beaters and some fun new cards to try out. Let's go ahead and look at the other Yorion deck real quick. Let's go! So the other Yorion deck we have here playing here is Azorious Foretell. This is a pretty strictly heavy on the Foretell list here with Yorion. Go ahead and jump into it here. Starting off here with a 2 of Disdainful Stroke. Welcome back, Disdainful Stroke. Countering anything with converted mana cost 4 or greater is actually pretty relevant. A lot of nice big spells in this new format. I expect people to be trying to take advantage of this really nicely. And the standard, this is another way to counter an early Great Henge, which is really good. Playing a whole playset of Jawari's Disruption, being able to kind of just have that available and scare the opponent, but also be a land drop if needed is nice. We're playing 3 of Cosima, God of Voyage. I think this card is amazing, and I'm excited to see what we can do with this. Beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return Cosima to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters and draw X cards where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. Really like that you just, you play this out. If it doesn't die the next turn, you can exile it, and you kind of just leave it there for as long as you need to. Say you made 3 or 4 land drops and you decide you want to bring it back. Congratulations, it comes back with all those counters and you're drawing that many cards. That is a huge effect there, so Cosima is super sweet. And the backside of Cosima is really cool as well. This is the Omen Kill, so this is a 2 mana 3/3 vehicle. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play lands from among those cards as long as they remain exiled. So, for one, this is only crew 1 to crew, so that's really nice there. Also, being able to take lands from the opponent, you exile their stuff anyway, which is great, but then as a way to kind of play those lands anyways, you're never going to be missing land drops with this deck if you get this going and start hitting them with everything. So, both sides of this card, Cosima and the Omen Kill, seem really, really great. In this list, I'm playing 2 Nico Aris. This is the 3 mana Planeswalker. It's 3 mana and then X for if you want to do that. When Nico Aris enters battlefield, create X shard tokens. +1, up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, return it to its owner's hand. -1, Nico Aris deals 2 damage to target tap creature for each card you've drawn this turn, and -1, create a shard token. I'm not sure how this really works in this deck, to be honest, but I kind of want to play this and be able to just start doing my thing with it. I'm foretelling cards for cheap mana anyways. If I need to draw cards, I have ways to do that at reduced cost, and then I can either -2 to kill something that's tapped, or I can just start returning things to my hand anyway, and then foretell it, cost it for cheaper later on if I need to. So I'm not sure if Nico Aris is super good in this shell, but I think it's one that I want to try it out in. So we are a foretell deck, so we can't be foretell without playing Nico Defies Destiny. This is a 3 mana saga. Chapter 1, you gain 2 life for each foretell card you own in exile. Late game, this could be a game changer against something like Mono Red, when you've been setting up all these turns, you need a way to survive a little bit longer. You play this for 3 mana, you gain 6 to 8 life or something like that, and then you're ready to go there is nice. Chapter 2, add white and blue. Spend this mana only to cast foretell cards or cast spells that have foretell. So 2 free mana there to either foretell something essentially for free or to cast one of those cards is cool. -3, return target card with foretell from your graveyard to your hand. Get all that extra juicy value once again. I like this card. I think it works out well in the shell. We're playing 2 up there. Playing a whole 4 of Raven Form here, and I'm not sure if this is what I want to do here, but since we're such a heavy foretell deck, I think this effect is just strong enough for you want to do this. If the foretell cost is only 1, so it'd be 3 mana total either way. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird. Trading anything on their side of the battlefield like that for a 1/1 bird is a fantastic cost. I like this card a lot in here, and I think it works out well in the shell. Playing a whole playset of Saw It Coming, I think Saw It Coming is just a super good counter spell, and it just kind of puts that fear into the opponent when you have all these foretold cards. They don't know if you have a counter spell or not, but they have to kind of play around it, and that gives you a chance to do this other stuff. I think foretell and all this kind of stuff works together really well. Once again, we're playing white with Yorion, so we're playing Skyclave Apparition. Skyclave and Nico Aris actually works together super well, because you can make your Skyclave unblockable, swing in, return it back, and then you're casting it again. I just love all these different ways to cast Skyclave Apparition if you can't tell. It's super good. We're playing a 4 of Behold the Multiverse. This is the Glimmer of Genius that I think is just better in this deck. 4 mana instant, scry 2, then draw 2 cards, but you can foretell this for 2 mana. So you do 2 mana on one turn, and then later on 2 mana the other. So say it's on turn 4, you foretold this, you foretold Saw It Coming. Turn 4, you're holding up counter magic and a draw 2 with scry 2. That's real good. Next up, the main reason we play in this deck here is Cosmos Charger, so we're playing a whole playset of this. This is my test to see if this card's good enough, because I feel like if this shell doesn't work with it, I'm not sure where it's ever going to work. But it's a 4 mana, 3/3 flying flash creature, Horse Spirit. Foretelling cards from your hand cost 1 less and can be done on any player's turn. And you foretell this for 3. You get to do these things at any player's turn. It makes a lot of difference in this deck, and I'm just really curious to see what kind of shenanigans we can pull off of this. So I think this card works out pretty well in this shell, but we got to test it out to see if that is the case. Next up is a card that I hate. I hate a lot because it's so good, I think, and it goes against a lot of decks. Because I'm an aggro person. I'm an aggro mid-range player. But we're playing a whole playset of Doomskar. This is a 5-mana sorcery, destroy all creatures. However, it has Foretell for 3. So, say if you're playing against aggro and you just see right off the bat they're just flooding that board. Turn 2, you foretell it. You let them, you tap out and incentivize them to play more. Turn 3, destroy all creatures. Turn 3, board wrath. Now you're still investing 5 mana into it, but the potential how strong the 3 mana board wipe is, you can't look away from. And it works out well in this deck too. It's just so good. So next up we have 2 of Starnheim Unleashed. This is the 4 mana mythic sorcery. Create a 4/4 White Angel Warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. If the spell is foretold, create X of those tokens instead. The foretell cost of this is white and XX. I'll be honest, I don't think this card is super amazing. However, getting to make everything a little bit cheaper with Cosmos Charger makes it worth trying. And we're just a foretell deck anyway, and I think we just want all the options we can with foretell. Really just kind of trap card it up on our way. And then later on these other turns, we have the option to either do this when we have more mana, or just hold up counter spells, draw spells, that kind of thing. So next up we're playing a 2 of Allrun and God of the Cosmos. I'm not 100% sure on this card, but for how it energizes, I think we got to try it. The front side is a 5-mana legendary god 1/1. Allrun gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand and for each foretold card you own in exile. So by the time we cast this down, essentially we're probably going to have some foretold cards anyway in exile. Also a handful of How Knows Many. So this could actually be a huge beater. At the beginning of your end step, choose a card type, then reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. If this card goes unchecked, it can just run away. Just draw you cards, increase its power, kind of filter through the deck and know what you're drawing. This card seems pretty sweet in this deck in particular. The backside, Hawk of the Whispering Raven, I don't personally love, but I know some people do. It's 2 mana flying, 2/3, so obviously that's a great race for that. Whenever it attacks, or whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand and scry 2. So obviously there's ways where you want to hit the player for 2, return this back and scry, and then later on cast Allrun. So it's kind of nice that it's going to be a blocker early on in the game. But if I'm just playing a 2/3 blocker for 2 in the early game, I feel like I'm not really doing what my deck wants to do. So even though this card has some versatility and there's places I'll play it, the front side's what we're really excited about with this card. Getting into some one of the more familiar hitters that we already know of here, we're playing 2 of Dream Trawler, just another card that draws you cards. Works out really well in this deck. And if you get this held down with all these extra foretold cards to protect it, it seems really nice there. Whole playset of Shark Typhoon because we can still cycle this to draw some cards at instant speed while holding up our foretelled cards. So that's really nice. Shark Typhoon is working out really good here. Playing 2 Allrun's Epiphany. This is the 7-mana sorcery to create 2 1/1 bird creature tokens with flying. Take an extra turn after this one and exile the card. Or you can foretell this for 6 mana. It's an expensive card, but extra turns are always really nice, especially if we can do something like set up a Dream Trawler and cast Allrun's Epiphany, and those curve out 1 by 1 next to each other. So you get your Dream Trawler down, you go to attacks, maybe they can't block it, and then you get to cast this, get you a whole another turn, 2 more flying attackers in the air, do your thing again. Card seems really good in this list. And that's what we got. We're playing a 4 of Maria's Call here to go with all the other lands here. So again, playing a lot of cards in this shell. It's a Yorion deck, you kind of have to. This is one where I think Crawling Barrens is also nice because it's just a way to invest mana into this that you're in step while you have these foretold cards held up. But yeah, I think this deck is kind of cool. I hate these styles of decks, so I hope this deck sucks. But I think if Foretell is going to work and Cosmos Charger is going to be a real card, we have to have it in a very dedicated show like this, so I wanted to try this out and see how it goes. So next up is a spicy little number that I know a few people have asked me about and wanted to see built, so have no fear, it is here. This is Jund Death Touch, Jund Poison. Let's go and look at the deck list real quick. Not a lot of new creatures in this deck, but the ones we do have are very important for it. Starting off here, whole playset of Bloodchief's Thirst. Quick, cheap, removal is always nice. Playing a whole playset of Falmir Knight because it has card draw on the instant side, but also it's just a Death Touch creature on 1 that can hold the battlefield down. Playing 2 of Moss Viper, just a 1/1 Death Touch. Again, nothing crazy fancy here, but we want all the Death Touch creatures we can have. Playing 2 of Cheville, Bane of Monsters. Also has Death Touch. It gains you life. It draws you cards. Everybody's played against a Cheville that doesn't get removed from the battlefield. They know how much of a pain this can be. We're playing 2 Eliminate here because obviously Heartless Act and Cheville are the biggest nombo ever. But 2 Eliminate still answers all the early game threats that we need to worry about. And then we have all these Death Touch creatures anyway, so our deck's just super hard to attack into. But let's talk about the new card and the reason we're playing this deck. This is 3 of Finn the Fangbearer. This is a 2 mana, 1/3 with Death Touch, legendary human warrior. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. And a player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. So even if it's a 1 mana creature here, which is why we're playing all these 1 mana ones, even if it's just a little 1/1 dealing damage, they get 2 poison counters. 4 more hits from that, they're dead. Like they can't, they'll die. They'll die dead. So that's really good there. We're playing a playset of Mire Triton, 2/1 Death Touch. We already know what this does. But I'm really interested in having a deck. You know, this kind of thing can both kill people just from regular combat damage, but also you drop that Finn and they're not able to do anything. Poison can just kind of kill them right out the gate. See, the fact they get 2 poison counters with this is super nice. Playing a whole playset of Hooded Blightfang. This is a 3 mana 1/4 Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a Planeswalker, destroy that Planeswalker. Kind of nice to be able to send your 1/1 in to kill something like a Vivian, and if they either have to block and it's a bad trade for them, or you just kill their Vivian. That's pretty cool. The drain effect on there as well for playing an aggressive deck. We still get this kind of swing in without worrying too much. We have this 1/4 back to block, and we're gaining a little bit of life in the process, which is super cool. Another new card we're playing here is 3 of Varragoth, the Bloodsky Sire. I think this card is actually super nice in this deck. This is a 3 mana 2/3 legendary demon rogue with Death Touch. It has boast for 2, so 1 in a black. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library. And this is why this card is really neat here, because say there's sometimes where you have a nice battlefield, but you don't have your Finn the Fangbearer. You boast, you go get your Finn, and then the next turn you draw it, you play it, and you do your thing. Or you'll see at the top end here, we have things like Vorinclex and Zogras. Both of these cards here, you know, we attack with Varragoth, and then that boast allows us to kind of find the missing piece that we're looking for and grab it. So I think Varragoth is kind of like the missing piece here. No matter what we're missing, we have a card that lets us go grab that while still being synergistic with what the deck wants to do. So Jund Death Touch, very sweet here. I think Varragoth has its home for sure. No surprise here, we're playing 4 Questing Beast, just one of the best creatures in Standard. Vigilance, Death Touch, H. You play Questing Beast and you never look back. As I mentioned earlier, we're playing 2 of Vorinclex, the Monstrous Raider. This is the 6 mana 6/6 Trample Haste, so it's already just a big beater on its own. But the fact that this gives double counters means that if you have your Finn out with this, that's almost a combo kill right there, because everything just kind of gets Death Touch. Everything with Death Touch is putting 4 poison counters on someone, and at that point they probably already have some on them anyway. So this is, you could play this, swing in, and the opponent could just die. And this really works well with things like Zargus, Thief of Heartbeats, because it says the other creatures you control have Death Touch. And there's a little bit of ways to make this cheaper. We play some warriors, we play some rogues. So, you know, there's ways to make this a little bit cheaper and work out for us here. So between Vorinclex and Zargus at the top end here, I think we kind of have some win out of nowhere stuff that you really want to have in decks like this. So, Jund Death Touch, this may not ever be a tier deck, and this may not be quite the way to build it, but I think this list is super cool, and I really want to try it out and see if I can kill somebody with poison at least once, and I know y'all do too. So as far as I'm concerned, this is my starting place with the deck. So next up, this is a deck that y'all know that I love, because I've tried it way too many times, and it lets me down a lot of times, but it's always really good when it works. But this is Naya Winota. Now, Naya Winota gets a lot of really cool cards from this set. Well, not a lot, but the ones it does get are pretty cool. So let's take a look at the 1-drop slot here. We're playing a whole playset of Battlefield Raptor. I know this is very unassuming, but a 1/2 flying first strike for 1 is already decent stats on his own. Early on, this in Stonewall aggressive decks with his first strike, and it's just an evasive threat that when you slam Winota down, not a lot of flyers are really going to be able to block this very well early on, so that's really good. A whole playset of Gilded Goose here, just allowing us to pump up the Winota a little bit sooner if needed, is nice. Whole playset of Selfless Savior, because obviously your Winota needs to live. So say if the opponent's holding up removal, you have the Selfless Savior, it makes it super awkward because you can just sack the Savior, keep your Winota alive. Playing a whole playset of Lotus Cobra here. Lotus Cobra allows for some turns where on turn 2 you play your Cobra. Turn 3 you play your land, you play Winota and swing in the Cobra, and your 1-drop possibly. And you're already getting 2 triggers on turn 3. It's really, really nice. I'm playing 2 of Arnie Brokenbrow here. This is a 3 mana 3/3 with haste. Just a good aggressive creature overall if you need to play it from the hand. But it's also a decent Winota target because you can boast it for 1 and you can change its power to 1 plus the greatest among creatures you control. So there's times when you may have like a 5 or 6 power creature out there with this. You pay 1 and all of a sudden Henri gets this boof here. So it's really nice there. We boof it. What the hell is a boof? But we boof his power up and make it strong. Whole playset of Bone Crusher Giant there. The Stomp is relevant. Bone Crusher Giant is relevant. We don't need to play too much interaction here because this is a deck that really just wants to do its own thing and make the opponent react to you rather than you react to them. But sometimes that Stomp is just kind of nice to have. And if not, Bone Crusher Giant's a nice Winota hit. Or at least a Winota enabler, I mean. So one card that may look kind of weird here, but this is Open the Omen Pass. This is a 3 mana instant where you can choose one. And we mostly care about the front side here. But add 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color. Spend this only to cast creature enchantment spells. This is just another way where if you have your creatures on the board on turn 1 or 2, on turn 3 you just play your Winota and you get to swing it again. It's really nice there. You can technically, with this, you can technically get Winota down on turn 2. We can go Gilded Goose into Open the Omen Pass, casting Winota. But then we're not doing anything with Winota that turn, so it doesn't seem like it's worth it there. But it's a way to get all these other things out early if we need to, so that's super cool there. A whole playset of Bozzy Lieutenant. As always, just a good Winota hit when you have that. 4 Winota, because that's what the deck's named after, you dingus. 1 Kenny, because we know how good Kenny is in this list. Perhaps it should be 2, but I wanted to just play 1 for now. And it's worth noting that Open the Omen Pass can allow you to do any of the other colors as well, while not having to go vary out of our colors too much, which is nice. And finally, one of the new cards I want to try out in this list, and a very good hit for Winota. This is Maja, Brigatard, Protector. Probably butchered that all to help, that's okay. This is a 5 mana 2/3 human warrior. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So you play your Winota, you get to swinging, you get something that buffs the whole team here and allows you to go wide a little bit later. Maja seems like a very good card in this kind of shell. We can cast it naturally if we need to, but you want to hit this off with Winota for sure. This seems like a way to just pump up the crowd and make your combat math for your opponent way harder than it was before. So that's what we got here. Otherwise, we got the lands as you see here. Nothing too crazy. Naya already had really good mana in the last standard. It already had all 3 pathways. So nothing too crazy to change here. But yeah, that's what we got here. Let's take a look at the next deck. Let's go! So next up, we got an archetype that I really didn't think was going to have enough support to make it happen in this deck, which sucks because I love the colors. But Berserkers actually ended up getting a lot of love from this new set and made it into where you actually have some decent viable things to play. So next up, we have Rakos Berserker. So starting off here, 4 of Blood Chief's Thirst. You already knew that was going to happen, right? It's a good card. We got to play it, along with the 2 Heartless Act and the other slots. We're playing a whole playset of Dusk Builder here. This is a 1 mana 1/2, which is already fine. Elf Berserker, boast it for 1, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I can see this being really nice, especially late game when they're right there at the edge and you go to attacks. And even if they have enough blockers to do this, the boast can just kind of get you there and win a game, which would be cool. We're playing a whole playset of Bloodsky Berserker. This is a 2 mana 1/1 Berserker. Whenever you cast your second spell on each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Bloodsky Berserker, it gains menace in the end of turn. So not only are you making this thing big and out of control as far as the damage with it goes, but you're also giving it menace, makes it really hard to block. And a lot of times with an aggressive deck like this, you're going to be casting a second spell per turn pretty often. So Bloodsky Berserker, very nice payoff here. I'm excited to see how this one does. So we're playing 2 of Fearless Liberator here. This is a 2 mana 2/1 Berserker. Boast it for 3 mana to create a 2/1 Red Dwarf Berserker creature token. Not in love with this card, but I do think it kind of does what you want as far as having the Berserker to attack on turn 2. But also, if you don't have anything on turn 3 to do, or you're kind of in top deck mode and you need a mana sink for something, you can boast this creature, make you another Berserker, synergize a little bit, you know. We're playing a whole playset of Skimfall Avenger here because even though it's an elf, it's also a Berserker. So it's another 2 mana 3/1. Whenever another non-token elf or Berserker you control dies, you draw a card and lose 1 life. We don't really care about the life loss in here. We're the aggressive deck. Drawing a card with removal here seems nice. We're playing 3 of Arnie Broken Brow here. This is the 3 mana 3/3. We've already talked about it, but 3/3 haste. Boast for 1. And the nice thing about changing his power to the +1 plus of the greatest creatures you control is we have things like Bloodsky Berserker that can potentially get really big. So say this thing's got up to a 7/7 all of a sudden. You're making in your Honorary a 8/8 or an 8/3 with haste. Damn, that's real good. That's real good. But just in general, a 3/3 with haste has potential to grow and synergize with all your Berserker strategies. It's really nice. I think Arnie Broken Brow. Is it Broken Brow or Broken Bro? Either way, it fits well in this list. I like this card. Here we're playing a whole playset of Open the Omen Pass. Reasons being is we can play a turn 3 Eradicator Valkyrie if we want to, and having a nice little 4/3 lifelink flying and hexproof from Planeswalkers is pretty nice. But also that the bottom text of it, creatures you control get +1/+0 to end a turn. This deck does want to have the potential to go wide, and if you do, boosting up the power of all of your creatures is relevant there. So both sides of this are playable. Being able to do things like either play Eradicator Valkyrie on 3, or perhaps you play the Bloodsky Massacre plus a 1-drop. There's a lot of different things you can do here, and I think Open the Omen Pass really helps out in these colors. Now, one card that got spoiled kind of early on that I'm really curious about here, this is Rise of the Dreadmarn. This is a 3 mana instant, but you can foretell it for 2 and then just pay 1 to foretell. It says create X 2/2 Black Zombie Berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn. Getting to foretell this and kind of hold this away means that 1 mana left up is really easy to do. And also, it makes you not have to be afraid of flooding the board with creatures, because if they die, you just pay the X at end step, get a bunch of Berserker tokens back on, and the next time you're swinging again. So I'm playing 2 of these right here. I could see this potentially being fantastic, though, and maybe wanting to play more. But as of now, we're just doing a 2 of here to test it out and see how it works. We're playing a whole playset of the Bloodsky Massacre. This is the 3 mana saga for demons. Chapter 1, create a 2/3 red demon Berserker token with Menace, which is okay. Chapter 2, whenever Berserker attacks this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So we do have ways where you're losing life a few different ways here, so we kind of have to watch out. We have things like Dusk Wielder that gain a set life back if it really is a thing, but I don't think we have to worry about that because, again, we're the aggro deck. Chapter 3, add a red for each Berserker you control. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as phases and as steps and phases end. So this helps you just really cast some big old things like Embercleave especially. You do this, you get this Chapter 3. This allows you to play more creatures and make it kind of look inconspicuous. And then you swing in, you still have that Embercleave mana ready to go because it doesn't lose itself. But this card seems great. If you're playing Berserkers, I think you have to play this. Getting to make a creature, get some card draw out of it, and then add some mana. That's all the kind of things you want to be doing in a list like this. So we already mentioned a little bit earlier here, but Eradicator Valkyrie, 4 mana, 4/3, flying, lifelink, hexproof, and planeswalkers. Those are decent stats on its own. The 3-butt's a little bit scary because it can die to a lot of removal. But if it gets to live, that lifelink is really clutch there. And again, it's another way to gain life since we're hurting ourselves in a few different ways here. But this has Boast for 1 and a black, sack a creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. We have token generators both in the Bloodsky Massacre and in Fearless Liberator here, so we have kind of things that make it easy to have sack fodder here, and whatever we're sacking, we can set it up in ways that they're sacking just worse things here. So Eradicator Valkyrie here, a nice thing to cast on 3 with your Omen Paths, a nice little beater in the air that's evasive, a good card overall. And finally with Embercleave here, Embercleaving a Valkyrie, having a 5/4 double strike trample lifelink. Hexproof from Planeswalkers. That's a mouthful. This whole set's a mouthful. I'm getting out of breath doing all of these. But no, it's good. Looking at the lands here, nothing too crazy. The Rakdos pathway was very, very needed because Rakdos mana sucked. We're playing 2 Faceless Havens here because it can be a Berserker as well when you need to activate that and have it do its thing. And then lastly, we're playing 2 of Immerstrom Skullcairn. This is the only one of these cards I'm playing in any of these decks here. But it enters battlefield tap to add black. You can pay 1 to black and 2 red and tap it to sacrifice it. It deals 3 damage to target player, and that player discards a card. So this is kind of like a Ramunap Ruins kind of thing, a little bit more expensive, but you get the 3 damage to the face and they discard a card. This is the best of this set. I wanted to try one of these out and see how it works out. That's what we got here, Rakdos Berserkers. Let's go to the next deck. So next up's the deck that I'll go ahead and admit this may be absolutely terrible and I may just be getting way ahead of myself, but I wanted to get something really spicy and try to make this work. But we have Jund Superfriends with In Search of Greatness. Let's go ahead and get into it here. We're playing 3 Bloodchief's Thirst and 3 Heartless Act. Did a 3/3 split here because I do want that removal. We're playing some Extinction Event up on the curve anyways, but some early removal or a control deck. We want to control the board early. These cards help us do so. Let's go and talk about the namesake though. In Search of Greatness is the 2 mana enchantment, green and green. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the highest number of mana costs among other permanents you control without paying its mana cost. If you don't, scry 1. So we don't have any early ways to get this off on turn 3, but we have a lot of stuff on the board here which will show what we're going to do. But basically early on this acts as a way to just kind of scry, filter your draws out a little bit so you know what good stuff you're drawing. But once you do, if we can start chaining these Planeswalkers up the curve here, we just start casting free Planeswalkers. And spoiler alert, that's really good. We're playing 3 of Valky, God of Lies here. It's a 2 mana creature here, but we can also play the backside later on. And it's kind of nice to have that versatility early on. Maybe we want to play this early, take a look at the opponent's hand, exile a creature from it. If we don't have anything else to do, because we know a lot of times early on we're just playing removal, maybe we just turn this into one of the creatures that we exiled. But if not, we at least see their hand and know what we're working against here. Late in the game, it's Tibalt, and Tibalt's a pretty good Planeswalker. We have a whole play set of Extinction Event here. Extinction Event, just, still a hell of a card. All these gods in standard, all the indestructible kind of things. Extinction Event can get around a lot of that. Exile them, get them gone. But let's talk about where we start getting a little bit combo-y here. So we have the In Search of Greatness here. At 4 mana, we're playing 2 Garruk Unleashed. I don't think it's an amazing card. It's usually been pretty underwhelming playing it in Standard. But still, it's a 4-mana walker that kind of starts that chain if we have some 5-mana plays in hand. So if you look at the 4-mana slot, we have Garruk. We have 2 Chandra Heart of Fire and 3 Vivian Monster Advocate at the 5-mana slot. So if we have In Search of Greatness down and a Garruk in hand or on the battlefield, if we have Chandra or Vivian in hand, we just plop one of those on the battlefield, and then we still have the mana left over where maybe we won't even play another one. So I can play Chandra, put Vivian in for free, and all of a sudden it's turn 5 and we have 3 different Planeswalkers out. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. At the 6-mana slot, to kind of keep that chain going, we have both Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, another Planeswalker, a really good one too, making creatures like this, and having a way to just remove stuff with its minus effect there is nice. But we're also playing 2 Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider. This is spicy because, say if we had both of these in hand, I could put the Vorinclex in on my upkeep, have it be there, and then we cast Garruk. It comes in with double counters. All of our creatures they get double counter things, whether we're plussing or if they're ETBing. Vorinclex allows a lot of these to just kind of ultimate right off the bat, which is insane. 7 mana here. We have Beanstalk Giant and Tibalt. So if we have the Beanstalk Giant already, we can just throw our big old Beanstalk Giant out there for free. Or we can cast Tibalt, which is probably what we want to do because that's just insane to me. So doing that for free is also really nice. And then finally, there's 1 8-mana Planeswalker. You may know it. It's Ugin, which is pretty good apparently. But playing Ugin for free is also a possibility in this deck. So we have that kind of chain going of In Search of Greatness, and then we have our 4-mana through 8-mana Planeswalkers and creatures. Again, this may be too just kind of out there, but we have a bunch of removal early on. We have extinction events for the board wipes, and then these Planeswalkers, if they go unchecked on their own, they just start generating all this advantage. It's very hard to keep up with. Vorinclex allows you to do things. Like, there's possibilities you can go Vorinclex and then cast Ugin, and you're just ulting it automatically, and you still have your Ugin left over. You don't lose games like that. That's insane. So maybe this deck is trying to do way too much, and maybe I'm just way too out there with it, or I'm missing something with it. But I'm excited to try this one out. It's a spicy one, that's for sure. But that's why we're playing this. This is why we test these things out to see if it's good or not. So, Jund the Super Friends, Jund In Search of Greatness. We'll see if it's good or not. And lastly, to end off the 10 decks of Kaldheim Standard, this is one that I seem to do every season. And it's had its times where it's been amazing, and it's had its times where it sucked. But they keep on printing things that enable these kind of deals, and I think they're actually okay. But this is Azorious Flyers. And I know you're thinking, ooh, 2 Azorious Flyers, 2 Azorious lists on one video. But this doesn't really play like a control-y thing. It's kind of tempo-y, but this is a deck that can just beat you down. So at the 1-drop slot here, we're playing a whole playset of Battlefield Raptor. Again, just a 1-mana 1/2 flying in first strike is very nice. Very underrated. I know that's not super exciting, but it's a badass bird flying from an explosion. We're also playing a playset of Kitesail Cleric, 1-mana 1/1 flyer, but it has kicker for 3. If it was kicked, you know, ETBs, you tap 2 target creatures. I've had games in Standard already where I played this and kicked it, tapped down the last 2 blockers I may need to get in there, go to town and get the win. So we do play some counter magic in here. We're playing 3 of Miscast and 2 Lofty Denial. Both these kind of things synergize really well with what we want to do. Instant and sorceries are what's really scary here, so 1-mana answer to those is really nice in Miscast. And also Lofty Denial and Flyers are just peas in a pod. You know, it's such a good spell in these kind of lists here and works really, really nicely. We're playing a whole playset of Skycat Sovereign and a whole playset of Watcher of the Spheres. Both these cards exist already in blue-white Flyers, but they just work so well together. They can both help you go a little bit wide, or reduce the cost of things to help you go wide at least. And then Skycat Sovereign just gets really big, and it's a huge, beefy threat to answer. We're playing a playset of Brazen Bar, because bouncing things with Petty Theft is nice, especially with a lot of tokens in this set, it looks like. We get to bounce those and just kill them is good. But also, it's a 3/1 flyer for 3 that you can flash in if needed, which is cool. So we're playing 3 of them. Vala, Shield of the Seagate. This is a 3-mana 3/3 flyer, which is already a decent rate. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, we don't even worry about that because we don't have party. It's not going to work in this thing. But at the bottom here, sacrifice Vala, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that at the end of turn. So this kind of lets you be able to just go wide a little bit. Play your Skycat Sovereign, play your Watcher of the Spheres, play Vala. Don't worry about other instants and sorcery spells because you can sack Vala and keep your team alive with the indestructible there. And then later on, if this does get to survive and you're holding up Lofty Denial and Miscast, you just have so many ways to keep your creatures alive. It's insane. Look at the new cards now because that's what we're really excited about. We're already playing the 1-drop here, but we're also playing 2 of Redain, God of the Worthy. This is a 3-mana 2/3 flying and vigilant creatures. Snowlands your opponent's control into the battlefield taps, so taxing them on that is really nice. And it's kind of a way for, I think a lot of people will be playing Snowlands at about everything. Even in my list, even knowing this card exists, I'm still playing Snowlands because it's the only hate bear for it. But as happening to have it is really nice. Non-creature spells your opponents cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. So those board wipes we're already worried about. That's the way you beat these kind of decks is a board wipe. Taxing those and making them cost essentially 6 mana. Real nice. Extinction Event, 6 mana. Real nice. But you also have this backside of it, which is Valkyria Protector Shield. 4 mana legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless the controller pays 1. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is because both of those kind of happen. So say if somebody's trying to stomp you, not only do they have to pay 3 mana for their stomp now, but also that stomp just does 1 damage. So this kind of thing's going to shut down way more than people are expecting it to be. I know Arena Decklists talked about how they really like this card, and a lot of people are sleeping on it, and I agree. I think both sides of this are very playable. Both sides work kind of well with the taxing nature of what Azorious Flyers wants to do. It's just really good synergistic stuff for both sides here, and I love it. Lastly, we're playing a whole playset of the Raven's Warning. This is a saga that got showed off pretty late here, but it's a really nice one for this deck. 3 mana saga, Chapter 1, create a 1/1 blue bird token with flying. You gain 2 life. Chapter 2, whenever 1 or more creatures you control with flying deal combat damage to a player this turn, look at that player's hand and draw a card. So by this time this hits off, especially if you're holding up counter magic now, you have flyers on the battlefield already, you have your counter magic held up, you're swinging in with these evasive creatures and then drawing cards and looking at the opponent's hand to know what to counter or what to play around. Super good there. Then finally, you may put a card a card you own from outside the game on top of your library. So for this one, like even though it's best of 1 for the early access event, I'll be building some sideboard to this of like 1-ofs for everything, just to kind of test around here. So that way, if we hit off with this, I can see what kind of cards I want to bring in here. But that's super, super nice there. But Azorious Flyers, getting a couple of new toys here. Not a lot of new toys, but the new toys that got are really interesting. I'm a sucker for it, but I know some of you are too. So we'll go down on this ship together. But those are my 10 decks for Kaldheim Standard. I really hope you all enjoyed. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you've not subscribed, please consider doing so. A lot of work goes into making these, but it is really fun, and I love doing it. Even if I have to take 1,000 different retakes on this because I'm so bad at talking with it and stumble over my words and everything. I'll have all the deck lists in the description there on my Aetherhub. Follow me on there as well if you don't follow me on there. Why not? As well as some decks I didn't show in this video, but I've brewed up. I'm going to have all those available for y'all as well. Hope you all enjoyed. I'm really looking forward to this new standard. Again, early access event, January 27th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/TitansmashMTG. We're going to beat up on some pros, beat up on some streamers, and show how these decks work in action. Thank y'all for watching. I'm so excited for this new set. Let's go!